What's up, dudes and dudettes? Welcome to another Food for Thought episode from my Stay Tuned series. Let's talk about why your first project car or other vehicle should be a beater and why you should keep it that way, probably for a long time. If you're currently working on your first project or would like to share what your first project was, tell me about it in the comments. Or on Instagram, you can find me at Rocking Uploads, and I'll put a link in the description. Okay, so first, let's be clear. Everyone's situation is different, whether it be what kind of vehicle they want to build, the level of hands-on involvement they want to have, the style, your financial situation, etc. So this is a talk about general situations and finding fairly common ground in the wide bandwidth of possibilities in terms of project cars and or vehicles. If you want to start a project, you most likely have an interest in a particular motorsport and or culture, and you've never had said setup of your own. And this is why you should start with a beater. In my opinion, if you're going to get into something new, it makes sense to start at an entry level with an entry level platform. This will allow you to grow in knowledge and capabilities in that activity. And it's also possible that you may not like what you got into and you can just back out. Starting with a beater will give you a feel for the activity. And the philosophy of starting at entry level with entry level equipment applies to just about anything, whether it be motorsports, outdoor activities, trade hobbies, etc. Now for motorsport, this means getting something used and kind of beat up. So first I'm going to talk about price. This depends on the platform choice and condition. I suggest starting with a relatively low-end version of the platform/genre that you want to get into. Getting a beater means you're starting on the low side of spending. You don't want something in pristine condition. In terms of price, pristine condition usually means it's going to have a higher upfront cost. Any hobby or project can get expensive quick. You want to save money where you can so you can spend it where it matters. And even if you have unlimited funds, buying the top-notch whatever, there's very little benefit when it comes to that, especially because it's your first project car. Now on the flip side, the cheaper your platform is, the more cash you will have for modifications, maintenance, and repairs, which is a really big benefit. Which is a great time to segue into talking about your driving/operating skills and whatever it is you're trying to do. Easier seen than done. It's a phrase that I literally just came up with. But honestly, it makes sense to anyone who has ever watched a pro anything and tried it for themselves. In dealing with something with a motor, things will break even at the pro level. The big difference is why they break. The best drivers not only know how to be fast and in control, they also know how to drive the machine at its limit and not beyond its limit. And this comes from years of experience where all kinds of failures and mishaps are inherent. Having a beater has several benefits in terms of driving ability. First, you'll learn the beater's limits in every aspect. Brake fade and what sounds should not come from your transmission are probably going to be the first ones you learn. Getting really good with subpar equipment is a great way to get good at the fundamentals. And this is because there's very little to help you compensate for lack of skills. For example, if you go to a go-kart track and have a hard time setting a decent lap time using the same equipment as everybody else, you are missing something. Now you could just, up the power and get some stickier tires, but that won't fix the fundamental problem, which is your driving. Now flip that scenario where you are just as fast or faster than everyone using subpar equipment. Then that's when it's time to upgrade. I know at first, that is a harsh truth. We all want to go in being some kind of savant and being the best at something. But as you make progress from practice, making those strides in the right direction is an awesome feeling. Plus your understanding of the fundamentals will greatly increase. Another reason to have a beater regarding your driving ability is that you will most likely crash into something, whether it be a curb, fence, barrier, wall, or whatever. Crashing your really nice project would suck. Now don't get me wrong, accidents can happen to anybody. but you don't want it to happen because of a rookie mistake on your part. And that's why beaters are so good. Beaters give you a learning curve, a time and finance cushion. If I knock off the bumper off my $1,500 beater, there'll be less downtime and a lot less curse words fired into undeserving air. So let's be clear. Getting good with a beater will help you become a better operator in most cases. And obviously there's always some kind of exception. Okay, so now let's talk about hands-on experience. If you don't have an interest in DIY, that's cool. Like, honestly, there's nothing wrong with paying or getting help from someone who has a skill that you don't. But I will say that projects are inherently hands-on to some degree. So if you don't want to be a DIY person, I suggest still being open and prepared to get your hands a little dirty, just so you don't end up stranded somewhere over something that maybe could have been fixed in 10 minutes. Okay, now for everyone who wants to tinker or get knee-deep into the project. Beaters are the way to go. Most people new to mechanics would be really cautious in taking apart or modifying a decent vehicle, and I wouldn't blame them. If my fairly new house had a roof leak, I wouldn't take the chance of getting more water damage with a shoddy repair done by me. I'd go out and get an expert. There's just too much to lose if I get it wrong. And you see where I'm going from here. Flip that. If it's an old shed with a leak, I'm going to get it done with something water resistant and duct tape. Because it doesn't really matter. Beaters are like the shed. Over time, I will learn that plywood, tar paper, and shingles would do the trick. And I got to work and learn to get that way. Because even if I were to start with the proper components via Google or YouTube, I still don't have the experience to do it correctly. Trade skills are skills. They're not something you can observe and instantly be good at. Remember, easier seen than done. This applies here as well. It's more comfortable tinkering and learning with a beater, and the repair costs will most likely be lower. And if you make a mistake, it'll probably be like a, oh well, rather than a what the F situation. Now, a note of caution. Depending on how beat your beater is, it will determine how much and how fast you have to learn things. If you get something that's completely bare, it could be too daunting for a first project. So I suggest getting something that runs and maybe needs some maintenance repairs, some beat up body work, but nothing completely inoperative. After all, you started a project for fun, not to spend a year figuring out what goes where and what's missing. I suggest leaving the rolling shelves to people who have more experience under their belt. And speaking of experience, a beater has the potential to help you reach your goals easier and faster. Depending on what you're building, starting with something beat will make it less of a hassle to take apart, chop, and build. Taking apart a clean car takes more time, more care, and more space. A lot of people like to sell the parts. If you're selling or keeping your parts, you don't want to damage them. And you want the most bang for your buck from selling. So that means you should probably clean them, which takes more time. And I'm going to mention that you also going to need a safe place to store them while they're on the market, because they will not sell instantly. Panels and parts take a lot of space. Keeping parts clean is not easy during a build. There's usually, stuff all over even if you're very organized. And one false step or a shifty shelf could damage something. So the parts need to be in a secure place. Add to that, if they are interior parts or vital parts, they will need to be in a place with low moisture and hopefully no pests. A mouse will make short work of nice seats and a wiring harness. So selling your parts can be ideal, but there are some compromises. With the beater, you can still sell or toss whatever you don't need. Now, if your goal is to have a car that is more track than street, or you plan on getting a body kit, rims, and stuff like that, little regard is needed for cosmetic and sometimes mechanical issues. This is because you're going to replace many parts anyway. Between cutting out the interior for a roll cage or replacing a million panels for like body parts, a beater could be the perfect muse for your work of art. Alright, so the last thing I want to talk about in this video is why you should probably keep it a beater for a while, if not forever. If you build up your beater in terms of performance, you will have something that does what it was built to do and fairly well. When you start making it nice and pretty, it's a strong possibility that you won't want to drive the hell out of it, or maybe even start to baby it. This will lower your fun factor because now you're worried about the car. Keeping it a beater, but having all the performance you want, is more fun in my opinion. Now, I know this whole video I've started with beaters and they became nice. The cars I made in this video represent your progress more than the cars themselves. Learning and applying skills in something that you're passionate about, it increases your quality of life, in my opinion. So to wrap things up, starting with a beater can save you money, save you time, teach you a new trade, and make you a better driver. Depending on what you're getting into, keeping it a beater might be ideal, but you can always apply what you learned from your beater on your next, possibly nicer project. And with that being said, stay tuned, and thanks for watching.